Hi, it's me, Ingrid INFP, and this is CBT therapy episode 12, I think. And we're going to be going through the second part of this chapter, which is about how to end the conversation, how to say no, how to be assertive as opposed to aggressive or doormat. So let's get into it. And we've talked about the art of conversation and how to improve your quality of your conversation. Something I forgot to mention last time is that about how to have open and closed questions. We'll get into it. I just wanted to tell you guys I'm not a therapist, I'm not a mental health professional, I happen to be a doctor. This is the general disclaimer that I am not trained in therapy. I'm just going through my own therapy for social anxiety with this book. That's a Swedish book about social anxiety, and I'm going through a chapter every week approximately. And this is the second to last chapter about this series. Anyway, this is open and closed questions, and it's better if you want to keep a conversation going or have like an open discussion. It's better to have open questions that aren't yes or no questions or like simple, straight to the point questions. It's more like, did you have a, like, instead of saying, did you have a good weekend? It's more like, oh, what do you like to do in your free time? Or are you interested in sports? Or instead having an open question like, what do you think of sports? Or instead of saying, when are you going on holiday? It's more like, what are your plans for the holiday? What do you work with? Instead you could say, oh, you work with this. What are your, like, I can't really say that this is open and closed questions. These aren't really good examples. Basically, most conversations should have a mix of open and closed questions. If you're just asking closed questions, then it will be hard to go forward because the person next to you will just like reply with a word or a sentence and then it will be done. So it's better to ask like, what kinds of books are you interested in reading, rather than saying, do you like to read crime novels? Okay. So instead of like assuming and saying like a yes or no, develop like an open question. And then, so that's when you want to open a conversation. If you want to close a conversation, this book is like, okay, every conversation needs to come to an end at some point. So we don't need to feel like bad about ourselves if somebody doesn't get interested and like the conversation ends. Because, well, it would end at some point anyway. So it's not really our fault. And if the conversation gets boring for the other person, it doesn't mean that you are boring. It just means that the conversation was like fizzling out, and that's fine. Don't think that you're being rejected just because somebody decides to go and talk to somebody else. Because, well, that's kind of the point of like meetings, parties, is to go and talk to different people and not just with one person about a topic. Even though sometimes I wish that it were that way. Sometimes I wish that the people at parties like wanted to talk about deep things and get to know each other one-on-one. Instead it's just like social butterflying all around, mingling. So yeah, there are different ways to excuse yourself if you need to leave a conversation. One way is to say like, oh, like you're at a party and you're like, oh, I'm going to go get some more water, or I'm going to like I need to go to the bathroom, or, or if you're in a rush, a way to end that conversation is to say, oh, well, maybe next time that we meet, we could continue this conversation. Or it was really nice to meet you and to talk to you, but now I have to go. I'm in a hurry, or that kind of thing. So those are good ways to end the conversation if you feel like you need to do that. I think that we have an easier time with ending a conversation because often we've had to do that in order to avoid conversations. But it's good to be able to do it in like a way that is conventionally acceptable rather than just running away, making people wonder. Something that we need to realize is that 50% of the conversation actually does lie on the other person. So if the conversation fizzles out, it doesn't mean that it's just your fault. The other person could have tried a little bit harder with the conversation as well. So now we're getting into the tough bit. This is about how to be assertive. And Swedish doesn't have a word for assertive, so they use the word assertiveness. Because it's only in English that you have this kind of word. I don't know if it exists in other languages. Anyway, it's to speak up for your rights and for your beliefs, that kind of thing. And it's not about being arrogant or being aggressive or that kind of thing. So the difficulties, they say it here, that the difficulties of being assertive comes from different fears. There's a fear of being negatively judged, fear of being rejected, or to be like ostracized, or like be outside of the group, and the fear of seeming like needy or dependent on somebody. So this is why it's scary to be assertive. And so assertiveness and social anxiety are not like two totally opposite circles. There is overlap. Some people with social anxiety are assertive, but some people who are assertive have social anxiety, and the other way around. They're not really like the same thing totally, but most people with social anxiety would say that they have problems with assertiveness. And so it's finding a balance between being totally passive and being aggressive. So being assertive is not one of those in the spectrum. Okay, being submissive is not good, but being overly dominant is not good either. We need to be on equal footing as the people that we're talking to. So being passive and submissive means that you're offering yourself to others, but it's costing you your own needs. So, for example, the example is that you're always the friend that is the designated driver at parties, because you and it's kind of like assumed that you're going to be it because every time you've said yes, that kind of thing. And that's like people are stepping on you, using you as a doormat. That's the problem with this. But some people with social anxiety can be too aggressive, because being aggressive makes people stay away from you, so you don't need to do all these scary social anxiety inducing things. And it's also a way to hide your insecurities by seeming like you are in control. And weirdly enough, it is more socially acceptable to be overly aggressive compared to being overly passive. So when you're aggressive, you put your own needs in front of everybody else's, like asking somebody to do a favor for you and not accepting if the person says no. So it's the opposite of the passive. But so the thing is trying to find the balance, the middle road, where it's being assertive. So being assertive doesn't mean that you'll always get what you want. And it's more about feeling at peace with yourself to like say your own wishes, at the same time being like appreciative and respecting other people's wishes and needs, so that their needs are just as important as your needs. So here we have a little chart of examples of different situations where the passive, the aggressive, and the assertive reaction. So, for example, so the situation is that you want to ask somebody a favor. The passive reaction is to not ask the person at all, because you can't put your needs in front of this person. The aggressive thing is saying, I want you to do this, or like, you must do this, basically ordering a person to do something. The assertive reaction is, it would really help me if you could do this. That's kind of the middle way. To be honest, you should do this and it would help me, it's just the more polite way of doing the aggressive, but okay. Another situation is you're asked to do something that you actually don't have the time to do. The passive reaction is, I'll try to make sure I do it. The aggressive reaction is, you can't be serious. Okay? Basically saying like, you're joking. The assertive reaction is, I understand that this is important for you, but I actually don't have time for this today. Another situation is somebody does something that you don't find really nice. So in this example, is somebody who's lighting a cigarette while you're eating, and it bothers you. The passive reaction is not saying anything, thinking like, I'll just have to live with this. The aggressive reaction is, can you like stop like with your cigarette? I'm sitting actually eating. And the assertive is, I would appreciate if you could wait with smoking until I've eaten. To be honest, it's just more polite ways of saying the aggressive reaction. But yeah, it's good. It's there are different ways to do this, but then there's a section about saying no, how to say no. And sometimes it's like, why is it so hard to say no? Okay, so these are the questions we need to ask ourselves of why this saying no thing is hard in this situation. So are you worried that people will think badly of you for saying no? What do people think of people who say yes to everything? People who take too much upon themselves and can't actually follow through. How do I react when somebody says no to something that I asked them? If somebody would be angry at me for saying no, what would it mean for me? Who or which people are winning from me saying yes? Okay, often not you. The thing is not to say no all the time, but it's to be able to have the possibility of choice in these kinds of situations. Otherwise, you feel forced to say yes when maybe you wanted to say no. So why is it difficult? Think about it. Do you actually want to do the thing that the person is asking you to do? So you have to be honest with yourself, but not egotistical. So it's about seeing that your own needs are the same as their needs. They're on the same level. And so this is different techniques about how to say no. This is something my ENFJ friend talked about a while back, and I think that this actually helped her a lot. For me, I'm a little bit more used to asserting these things. I'm less worried about what people will think, but the biggest one is to ask for time to think, time to ponder, time to do the thing. And this is an easier way to say no, because you're not actually saying no, you're actually just saying that you'll take the decision later. So you could ask some questions like, to yourself, how long time would this take? You know, what are the positive and negatives with saying yes or saying no? Do I need to know something more before I decide something? Is there something I must sacrifice in order to say yes? What will happen if I say no? And how long will this thing that somebody is asking me of take? Another thing is to start easy. So don't start saying no to somebody that you're scared of, or somebody that you can't say no to. Start with saying no to people that you feel that you can trust and that you feel that you can say no to. So maybe if you're scared of your boss, start by saying no to other people first before you tackle that thing. Then it talks about the broken record. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of this, but in CBT they talk about the broken record. That's basically you say no every time the person says something else, you just repeat the same thing that you said before. And then at a certain point, they'll realize they can't argue with you about this. So an example is, could you help me with this? Sorry, this time I'll have to say no. But you're so good at this, and I don't have the possibility to do this. Sorry, this time I must say no. But others really love it when you come. Sorry, this time I must say no. But why aren't you doing this? Sorry, this time I must say no. It's basically like the broken record. You say the same thing again and again. There's another variety where you're not exactly saying the same thing, but you're saying things, the same thing, but with different words. So you could, instead of saying, sorry, I must say no, you could say, I'm sorry, but I can't actually do this right now. Or I can't do this this time. Or sorry, I don't have the possibility at this time to do this. And then there are ways to, so don't find excuses or explanations, because then you start getting into the trap of being argued and debated with. And it makes you feel guilty. So don't try to keep it straight to the point and not invent a bunch of stuff. Here are some other ways to say no is, for example, say to the person that you appreciate being asked, thank you for asking, but, or I really appreciate that you thought about me, but. Something else is to affirm the other person's needs and wishes. I know this is important for you, but I understand that you really need this, but. Okay, so yes, but. You can give an explanation to why you're not saying, but don't go into excuses. So I have to go and see my my grandmother, or I have to prepare for the meeting tomorrow. Okay, that's it, to the point. Sometimes you could also help the person find another answer to their problem, oh, well, I cannot do this right now, but I know that there are other people at this office that could help you instead. That's pretty good. The thing is, don't make the problem your own, okay? Don't go and look for people. Like, instead, like, tell them something that they can do. Another thing is to become more and more sure and firm. So first you say, thank you for asking, but unfortunately I have some time. I don't have time for this kind of work right now. And then if they insist, then you say, no, I will not take on more work. And the next thing is, no, you'll have to ask somebody else. I'm sorry. So do it without sounding aggressive, but be firm. Then this is about me turning the you to me. It's so being assertive, but also so this is how you can do it. It's built up in 5 different steps, which is kind of a lot, but here we go. So describe the problem, like generally, and go from yourself instead of from the other person. So saying, I think we have a little bit of difficulty talking with each other, and it feels difficult for me. Instead of saying, you're completely impossible to talk to. Okay? So talking about your own feelings rather than like that other person. I think INFPs, we can do this. It's fine. An example that they have later on is I would like to discuss my work situation with you. Right now I feel like I have a lot to do and I have difficulty doing my work in a good way. It means that I don't feel good about and satisfied about the job that I'm doing, or the work I'm doing. So that's number 1. Describe how you like see the situation from your point of view as a you, I. Number 2, bring out the positives. So for example, so you want to say the positives and the negatives. You have a lot of good arguments, and usually we can like meet these topics together, and we manage our conflicts well. Instead of saying, you think that you know best. You always think that you know best. That's kind of insulting, okay? Another way to like positive aspects is saying, I really appreciate that you're taking, that I have gotten a lot of responsibility and you seem to trust my like experience and to do all of these different working challenges. Okay, so that's positive. Okay, that's step 2. Step 3. So tell us about the problem and say how you think the conflict should be resolved, and be concrete. Okay, not diffuse feelings. Okay, not INFP. Okay, so some a way to do this is so we talked about the positives about the conflicts. I feel that when you go out of the room in the middle of our fight, it means that you don't like take into account what I have just said. Instead of saying, you don't care about what I think. Okay, you know. Then there's another example is, but okay, we were just talking about the positives about getting more work. Here's the but. But right now I feel stressed and I would need help to prioritize within my work. I would want us together to come up with some like my working tasks that are most important, so that I can put my energy and doing them in the correct manner. Okay, this is doing the concrete problem solving. Okay, you described the problem and you talked about how you would like to change it. And step number 4 is show that you have respect for the other person's situation. Okay, so even if you nobody has 100% right or wrong. Okay, so I understand if you are also stressed out and you want to go and smoke for a bit to calm down. Don't say that you understand something that you don't understand. Okay, so skip this stage if you don't understand. Okay, because otherwise that would be pretty dishonest. But here in the work context, an example. Okay, wait. The instead of saying that with the smoking, something that would be bad to say is right in the middle of all this, you go and smoke. It's like you're like smashing the door in my face. Okay, that's insulting. Don't do that. Rather say that you understand that they're upset. Another example of how to show that you understand is saying, I know that the pressure is tough at this workplace, and everybody has as much to do as I do. Something like that. And number 5 is give a way to answer the problem and make the conflict into a problem that you both have. So don't say that like I'm right and you're wrong, you know. It's actually something that we need to do constructively together. So the last thing is, I would appreciate if we could sit down together and look up my tasks together and find a common solution. Okay, this is the road to diplomacy. Okay, and then also check out your nonverbal communication. It's better to show confidence because otherwise it seems like you're not taking something seriously. Eye contact, being relaxed or seeming relaxed. Don't like look down and, you know, because you want to be taken seriously. So in order to say no, you can't just be like, no, you know, you have to go like, no, I do not want to do this, you know, I cannot do this. So what you need to know is, well, that yes, like you'll do this, but then some people will not listen to you anyway, okay? Try to think about the negative automatic thoughts that makes this so difficult for you. Try to do a hierarchy of how much anxiety you have for this, and try to look at where you have your attention. If the attention is on yourself too much or on the other or on their judgment too much, think more about like the external situation. So the training, or the challenge for this chapter is like think about assertiveness. What do you think about this text? I don't know. And continue with your exposure therapy while you're doing this. So I will say this, that I've been on both sides of the like assertiveness thing. I've been the passive, I've been the aggressive one. I also have been the person who has had to say no, and also the person who has been said no to. And I've taken it in different ways. And so I know from being the person who has said something and that a person hasn't said no, has been too passive, that it isn't good for anyone. Okay, is not good for you to say, to like ignore your own needs, because it will come back to you. Like it will splash on your face, you know. And if a person doesn't know where your boundaries are at, if they don't know that you want to say no, then they'll just keep pushing. They'll keep walking on you, and they won't even know that it's wrong. So I've been every person in this situation. Sometimes I've even been too assertive, being aggressive, basically, where I'm like no, or like I get mad and I like inadvertently insult somebody. But you know, we need to deal with these things diplomatically as adults and not hurt other people in the process. So that's that about this chapter. This was a long one because there was a lot I had to sift through in order to feel that this could apply to anyone, you know. Thankfully, next chapter is the last chapter of this book, and it's just going to be a recap and a way to like how to do this on your own in the future. Okay, you guys have been doing it on your own with me, but I've been doing this with my therapist. So now I'm on my own since my therapist. I've changed therapist. So this is more for me of how I'm going to keep doing these strategies in the future. Okay, well, have a great day. Bye.